Okay, today we are doing a little bit of a different episode. We are going to be discussing some of the topics that have been bothering me for a while now. And actually we had some prior experiences with that in the past life when we were still doing a lot of reviews as former journalists and editors. The episode is about problems with the product launches, rushed launches, problems with the products that have made it to the market, and then it turns out that they have loads of issues. Mostly we're talking about hardware devices. Maybe Yasmin has some other examples, we'll see.
Oh, yes.
But with that being said, welcome to ThatITShow podcast, and let's roll the intro. My immediate reason for suggesting this topic is not necessarily related to the latest news about Zen 5 architecture and or 13 and 14 Gen that have problems with failing, and this has been a widely reported issue. This is just, let's say, creme de la creme on top of the issues that we've faced in the past 20 plus years since we became interested in these topics. My issue is actually a long-standing tradition that it seems like it's getting worse in terms of the quality of the product. And then the other issue related to that is the way in which these problems are communicated, which is a whole separate can of worms that we can also open a little bit later. Sorry to say, but if we reference the latest situation that happened with AMD with Zen 5, their handling of the issue is abysmal. They've been pushing press releases stating that the reviewers don't know what they're doing, basically, in those press releases, stating that they don't know how to measure the performance of their CPUs in games. They blamed Windows for some parts, etc., etc. I have no problems with a product having, let's say, 95% finished drivers before the launch. And that mostly happens. We actually made an episode about
Intel's drivers, which would have been very happy if
they were 90%. But
there,
now
yes.
they are, and they are very good, actually. And we clearly stated in that episode that we are talking about the state of that now, and that we are sure that that's going to get solved as it did.
And unfortunately, from there to now, Intel has managed to not only had a problem with drivers, but also they decided to introduce problems in the hardware part of the manufacturing.
I don't think that they decided; it just happened.
But the problem is that the things that we are going to talk today about seem to be happening more and more often.
Yes.
And I would suggest, because this is the thing that has been happening for a few years, is that the speed in which the products have to be on the market plays a major role. Because both AMD and Intel have to,
as well.
and NVIDIA and whoever, they have to have another generation of the chips or another generation of the products, whatever they are, each year. Mm-hmm. So even if the product is not ready, mm-hmm. and by not ready, I mean entirely not ready for the market, they decide to ship it, and either they say, okay, we are going to fix it later, mm-hmm. or in the case of AMD lately, it seems to me that they're buying time before they are able to actually do something. Mm-hmm. So the blame game is not something that was specific to AMD. Also, Intel did it.
I really don't want to have a discussion about any kind of blame game, or I don't want to have bad faith discussion at all. So this is not casting aspersions.
No.
But
the thing is that AMD should have known better, because it has happened to Intel. Intel has done the entirety of the PR possibilities. So they, when it happened first, when they had to recall the chips for the division error, they did that. They blame the reviewers in another version where they had some problems with the chips. If you remember when the 4 gigahertz, 1333 chip wasn't able to compile because it was crashing, so they blamed the reviewers. Then they pulled the chip back.
Last year they had a problem with the motherboard BIOSes. They blamed the motherboard manufacturers.
BIOSes. Now they decided that they have a problem and they are communicating. First, they decided that they are not going to communicate anything. And then now they're communicating that they know that they have a problem, but this is going to be solved really soon now, whatever really soon now is.
They already issued an update. We had the discussion about this over the weekend.
Yes,
you said that you are not going to update. I will. I did. A new firmware for the motherboard and the CPU code as well. Seems to be working okay so far. But in that situation, something else worries me, which is that their initial reaction was there is no problem. Then the second reaction was we are not going to do any kind of, let's say, remediation. Then they explicitly said that they are not going to pull the product from the market, although they were, according to a lot of the news that were
They were exchanging CPUs.
I mean, gaming companies were stating that 50+% of the CPUs were failing. Then they said that they are going to work with the warranty. So they expanded the warranty period, and then they expanded the warranty period again after that, so twice.
The thing is that the reason why I didn't update this particular case is because I have this computer running 24/7 for the last year or so, and I haven't had any problems with it. So
you do realize that that's not the solution to the problem, and that the problem may still happen.
It may happen, but if the solution is actually electromigration inside the CPU, I would guess that it would surface until now. Because the thing is that it has been running actually for the last year. It was been down for maybe 2 or 3 days in the last year, and it was running all the time. So I don't think that the update. But let's not go into this.
We are running our computers in stock settings, so that's definitely
because I never overclock the computers, because the thing is that. For the last 10 or so years, or 15 or so years, I have decided that I don't want to modify my computers outside the stock settings for 2 reasons. First, I can afford more expensive CPUs. So I'm usually buying not the highest end, but usually the second most expensive CPU there is on the market. And the second thing is that I have no need for the overclocking.
Yeah.
Because the overclocking itself probably gives you 10% performance or 15% performance, and the price you have to pay is the instability. I much prefer the stable computer than the computer that is 10% faster. So I don't care about this. But let's go way, 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 way back, because I want to start with the completely opposite of what you were talking.
Okay.
And I want to start with how this was done a lot of years ago, so 20 years ago.
Oh, I have some examples from there as well.
Because this was the time when I was much more into mobile phones, in the mobile technology.
Okay.
I was following the mobile industry back way then when I was the journalist, and I went to a couple of launches that then became paper launches, basically. And I wanted to note one failed launch and the state of the technology that makes that failed launch look pretty tame and pretty normal from our perspective today. So in the start of 2000s, so it was 2003 to 2003, Siemens Mobile was a thing. So Siemens had a company. I don't know if they are still producing phones. They are not selling them in our market, from what I can tell. But I don't know if they are still doing the phones with somebody else. The thing is that way back then, they were a player on the market. They weren't in the first 3, but they were a player on the market.
No, they were actually quite a big player back then, just like Ericsson.
Yes, I think they were number 4, number 5 in the market, and they in some European countries they even were the number 1. Especially on the low-end phones, because the low-end phones that they produced, particularly S35E and S35, were actually good mobile phones for way back then.
Okay.
But this was the time when companies were not afraid to experiment. So I want to talk about two phones. First one is Siemens SX1. SX1 is the ugly phone that you're going. Yes, the one with the ugly phone. The ugly phone is
Ugly duckling.
No, the reason why I wanted to know make a note about this one is because they played with the concept of the mobile phone and pushed it all the way, probably way too far. Because they put the numeric digits on the sides of the screen. So 1 to 6 on the left side of the screen, and then a 6 to 0 and pound sign on the right. This was controversial.
Yeah.
Because this actually makes inputting SMSs, and this
The key aspect of that is extreme user unfriendliness.
Yes, but you need to also take into account that people were actually using the phones to talk way back then. People didn't use the phones to send the messages because the messages,
they did, but different.
Yes, but the messages themselves cost money.
Yeah.
So it was usually much cheaper to just call somebody than to send 100 SMS messages.
I would say that it was much cheaper to actually call somebody, say, let's get a cup of coffee,
yes,
and then have coffee. Yeah.
So,
at the time when the human interaction was still normal.
But the reason why I wanted to point out the SX1 as a specific model is because when they launched it, I was at the launch when it was done in I think it was in Nice, in France. And the thing was that they showed us the phone. The phone was supposedly able to reproduce the video. Okay, on the 2.1-inch screen, but it was supposed to be able to reproduce the video, play MP3s, and play the radio. The thing is that when they were showing us the prototypes to show us how the phone is going to look like, they actually didn't have a prototype that was capable of doing all the things at the same time. Because it had limited memory, so they weren't able to squeeze the entirety of the features inside this memory. So what they basically did is they created 4 different phones. One able to call and send SMSs, one able to reproduce video, one for the radio, one for the MP3. And then
You're kidding me.
No. They just showed you different phones when depending on what you wanted to test.
That's like whack-a-moling.
Yes.
Across the functionality of a phone.
Yes, but the thing is that this was
I
just
need
the start.
to have those 4 phones.
No, they probably don't exist anymore. But the thing is that later, the problem is that since this was a paper launch and they didn't have a product, it took them 6 or 7 months to create something that was actually able to be sold and work. And after a couple of months, all the rest of the companies had the same phone available that was not in such a controversial form factor. So SX1 was one of the biggest failures that they created. But the thing is that when I was talking about this, I also wanted to mention that in 2003 and 2004, there was something called Zelibri. Zelibri was also a Siemens product.
Okay.
When they decided that they are going to be creating collections of phones that are going to be completely different, and the phones were intended to be a fashion statement. So they basically created phones that were intended to be worn as a fashion thing.
Is one of those phones like for the powder or something, that design?
Yes, there was I checked it. It was called Platinum Blush or Zelibri 6. The idea was that they would release phones in collections. They would release one collection each 6 months, and all the phones would look different.
How much do you want to bet of your hard-earned money that if I was to open eBay right now, I'm going to find those phones there, and they are going to cost a shitload of money?
Yes, they could do cost a shitload of money, because the entire sales were checked on the Wikipedia, but the entire sales was something like 780,000 units. So it was just, but it was way back then when also Nokia had a phone called 7280.
Okay.
The one called lipstick phone, I show you.
Oh yes, I
the
remember
one that
one.
has the Navi wheel. So you basically have, if you wanted to input, if you want to input the SMS, we'll put it on the screen. If you want to input the SMS, you can see that the alphabet was on the middle, on the lower part of the screen, and then you had to scroll left and right in order to input the characters. So it was amazingly clumsy to use.
This reminds me of a class that I used to listen related to music history, and I was doing music high school, and when we were talking larpolartism.
Yes.
It's basically change for changeism.
Yes, but what I wanted to note here is that these failures were experiments.
Yes.
They know, or they were completely aware that it could backfire, and they were aware that probably people are either going to love the product or hate it. So the product was hated, and they said, okay, we are not going to do this anymore. But this was when Nokia
Like
was
test launches or something.
Yes, because the Nokia was known that the Series 7 were the unusual phones, the special phones, the phones that were much more expensive than the others, phones that had different different types of innovations into them. So the covers, the materials, the titanium, and so on.
Okay.
In order to just to test if people are going to like that kind of phone.
Okay, I get it.
So this was on purpose.
Basically R&D.
What Intel is doing is not on purpose. They have a problem. AMD has a problem. NVIDIA had a problem.
They have a problem now.
Which one?
The current one is B100, the new chip that was supposed to go for data centers and AI accelerators.
But let's not forget the problem for a couple of years ago when they decided that they need to switch the connector for the video card. And then
that is never going to be forgotten.
Then they decided that they want to push 600 watts through the single connector. For everybody who knows anything about electrical engineering, this means 50 amperes of current on 12 volts. And then they were amazed when this started to overheat and catch fire.
Do you follow perhaps the YouTube channel Nordbridge Fix?
Yes.
He has an episode about fixing those connectors regularly still.
But the thing is that this was completely avoidable.
Yeah.
And the thing is that what bothers me is once you're capable of creating a complex video card such as 4090 or 4080, whatever, and then you fail at the simple electrical engineering problem of having enough power through a conduit, because this is a simple thing to solve.
This has been worked out many, many years ago. How it's done.
Probably hundreds of years ago. So I don't understand what the problem was. Why did they decide to create such a problem? Edge connectors exist. All the servers use edge connectors to transfer huge amounts of power from the PSUs, hot swap PSUs to the servers. So why not use the existing technology that works instead of creating your own connector that doesn't work?
It's not their own. It's a standard connector, but the way in which that standard was approved resulted in the connector being a problem. The 12-volt power connector that's now on the graphic cards. But actually, to add a personal note to that, that's exactly the reason why I didn't even bother buying the 40 series cards, although I would really benefit from one for certain workloads that I do, but I just didn't want to risk it. Because that problem is still current.
The problem is current, and to solve it, basically you need to have a bigger case, and you need to buy additional connectors that are actually proven to work.
Yeah, cables.
Yes.
Custom cables are needed for that. And there actually, to that point, there were multiple relaunches of those cables by Cable Mod or somebody. They had a couple of revisions of the cable, but they were pretty open about it and said that the cables need replacement. So, yeah.
Okay, so now let's talk about, let's do one by one. You list your failures, I'll list mine.
I don't know. I don't even know when to start. I just wrote a couple of pointers here. My favorite ones are Intel's and NVIDIA's. And
I'm going to
for mental exercise, no ill will towards those companies. I have been working with their products since I was a child, so this is purely professional thing that I mind in terms of the practice that they have.
I have compiled a little list that is more oriented towards the usual suspects, so the Microsoft and the.
Oh, excellent! So we are complementary. Okay, I'm going to try to keep this short. My first real memory of an actual problem that Intel had is related to the situation that I had when I already started working as a journalist, which was related to Pentium Extreme Editions and the all of our favorite processors, Prescott's, Pentium Ds and whatnot, the pancake motherboards that I mentioned in a couple of previous episodes and whatnot, because those products were ill-fated to be even launched, let alone to let them on the market because of the overheating and the lack of technology at that particular time to actually remove the excess heat from them. So that resulted in a couple of really, from one point of view, funny scenarios. The pancake scenario that I mentioned. So if CPU fell through the motherboard. That's the amount of heat that it generated, and the cooler was not capable of doing the job. And I'm not talking about the stock cooler. It was Zalman's cooler, which were back then, I think, treated as the best ones, 7700, 9900 and whatnot. And the little bit less of a funny approach to the same topic is the fact that somebody might have left that turned on in a computer and caused a fire and burned his house down or her house down, which is in no way or shape or form a funny thing. Then in 2011, they had the Sandy Bridge chip recall, which was related to SATA ports and whatnot. They had many delays for Intel Broadwell. They had, and I'm not even going to get into all of the problems with their manufacturing processes. We could spend days talking about that. All, the 7 Plus, the 7 Plus Plus, the 8 Plus, all of those weird names that they gave their processes for basically nothing, relaunching of the same thing. I mean, AMD is very much the same. They had very much same issues over the years.
Let me stop you. This was Intel was the first. Let me just interject and say, let's go back and remember Windows ME, then Windows Vista, then Windows 8, not 8.1, Windows 8. So Microsoft was consistently doing every other operating system that wasn't working. So they were extremely consistent in this. They launched ME, had to change it into XP because XP worked. Then launched Vista, had to rush Windows 7. Then created Windows 8, had to rush Windows 8.1.
Yeah, because Windows 8 didn't work at all.
Yes, and everybody's pretending that they weren't launched at all.
Now, the funnier part of that story is the server part.
Yes.
The server 2012, I remember listening to the Microsoft calls that the Jumpstart course.
Yes.
It was for upgrading from 2008 certificates to 2012 IT certificates. And a couple of guys from Microsoft and one external expert. I remember those jump starts like yesterday because they were funny as hell and very enjoyable to watch, and you learned stuff along the way. But they had a couple of angled touchscreen monitors on which they were typing on the screen for the server OS. That was the funniest misuse of technology ever.
Yes, the incredible start menu that you had to find by trying to find which 4 pixels on the screen were triggered in the start menu.
And while we're at it, start menus, the search still doesn't work.
Yes.
Still, to this day, and since those days, and earlier.
Yes, but now you know where it is, in the middle of the screen. Now it is moved. But anyways, this was the. I wanted just to honorably mention Microsoft because I'm going to be doing another set of Microsoft failures.
Oh, great!
Because we have collectively forgot how incredibly successful Microsoft is at launching products that nobody wants.
Okay.
Or the products that people actually want, but they are unable to execute. So you get things like the things that I'm going to mention later. So let's move to do your AMD.
Okay. I don't want to revisit 13, 14 Gen Intel because I already said that in the first part of the episode. That's why I wanted to move to AMD. They had issues in 2007 with Phenom. in 2011 with Bulldozer. I mean, the blue screening like crazy. Vega GPUs in 2017. They were really, really bad. I seem to remember some others from back in the day when I was still in the previous computer magazine, which was even worse than all of those things combined. Then Ryzen 3000 series boost clock issues in 2019, etc. And nowadays they have a problem with the Zen 5 architecture, which I don't know how I would call their approach without being extremely insulting. But my honest opinion is that they are basically gaslighting everybody with the approach to marketing and PR that they are doing in terms of trying to explain to people what's happening with Zen 5. It's just inexcusable. You have dozens of videos on YouTube related to those problems, and a lot of people have really started to yell at AMD because what basically they're said in some of their articles posted on AMD.com is that the reviewers don't know how to benchmark their CPUs and GPUs, which is funny.
Okay, let's now switch to poor man's Apple that is called Microsoft.
Poor man's Apple.
Yes, because when Microsoft first saw the iPhone and the iPad and the iPod, I need to make a distinction there. Yes, they decided to create the Microsoft phone and the Zune. Zune was supposed to be the iPod. The Microsoft phone was supposed to be the iPhone.
Can I troll you for a second?
Yes.
Zune wasn't all that bad.
No, it wasn't bad, but the thing is that they decided to blatantly copy the idea of the iPod without the music store, without the available music, without the ecosystem that was covering anything. Why? They just decided that they need to have the same device as the company that they were fighting with, but they didn't do the homework. So the Zune itself was a good device. There are people who are using Zune nowadays.
I still use the iPod.
Yes, but the Zune is much harder to use nowadays because the iPod has some sort of compatibility still happening. Okay, Microsoft is not a stranger to controversies and trying to push things. One could even say that they are not afraid to experiment.
Okay.
But one thing is when you are experimenting with something, the other is when you blatantly copy and then you decide that this is not going to work.
Okay.
Case in question, Zune. Or whatever was the name of the application that Microsoft was pushing on the Windows for music. There was an application that had the name, and nobody remembers it. They had a music application on the Windows in some of the versions.
I don't remember really. Zune Music.
There was a Zune Music. There was a Zune Player, but there were also some application that Microsoft was.
I'm sure you're not talking about media players, so go on.
Yes, also Paint 3D. This was the latest Microsoft foray into trying to do something new and then failing, then saying, okay, this is not going to work anymore. Paint 3D is cancelled.
Speaking of which, yesterday or on Saturday, I wanted to use Windows 11 based Paint.
Yes.
To resize the image.
Oh, how did that go?
It took me a while.
Yes.
They moved stuff around.
Yes, I know.
But why? Like why?
Download anything. GIMP is better.
I'm going back to Paint Shop Pro 7 or something.
GIMP is better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here from you.
Now you do one.
You the one. I mentioned so we mentioned some of the problems with NVIDIA. I want to mention the latest one that I heard about basically a couple of days ago. It's not necessarily as public, the AI one. It's not necessarily as loud as it might be because mostly this chip is aimed at the data centers, not necessarily the desktop market, but you never know. At the end of the day, there are some reports, this is Blackwell series, as NVIDIA calls the chip, B100, if I remember correctly, the product ID. There are actually two versions of the story. One of them is that there are certain problems with the chips and they are going to do a respin. Lord knows AMD and Intel did that over the course of the past 30 years many times over, and NVIDIA as well. So I wouldn't call that necessarily a problem. It's just something that needs to be fixed by a respin. It just costs time and money.
Yes.
So it is what it is. If the end result is chip working, who cares? For the 3 or 6 months that it requires to be for that to be done. The other version that I heard yesterday from a colleague is that they are actually going to cancel that chip altogether, which is very weird, although that kind of plays into the rumors that I saw on the internet that they are pushing the customers to buy the older data center cards as much as possible via their sell partners like Supermicro and everybody else. I don't know what's going to happen there, but I can definitely say a couple of other things related to this. First and foremost, you can see from the market state. We had a brief chat about this earlier today. From the state of the market, and I'm now talking about the stock market part, in which we had, like something like this happening to a value of more than a few companies related to the AI boom, NVIDIA included. And on the side, people realizing that the AI boom is not necessarily something that's going to be be-all, end-all solution to any of the problems that we might have. It may be actually a little bit more of a PR and marketing stunt at this point in time, not necessarily permanently. Hence the reason why there are so many of these corporate stocks falling and failing. You mentioned that Microsoft is relaunching Copilot. I know that they said that they are going to relaunch Recall in October as well. And of course, they are not saying how the Recall is going to actually operate, which we would really like to know. We have an episode with our colleague who does security coming up soon, so maybe it is already out by the time we release this episode, in which we discuss Recall in great detail from a security and actually from the, let's say, legal framework perspective as well, because there are things that need to be mentioned there. So yeah, I'm just looking at this and in constant amazement, because to further your point that you made earlier, this is happening not necessarily more often as it used to happen, because the release cycles were faster years ago. It's not necessarily happening as often. It's something else. It's that it's happening on a much more fundamental level. That's what worries me. Intel's problems is related to voltage on certain parts of the CPU.
And to the problems in the foundries. And this is one of those things that were supposed to be solved. Intel, after 30 years or 50 years of producing chips, should have been able to produce a chip. There shouldn't be a problem in the production process that is ending up with chips being broken completely.
Yeah, well. And I just yesterday I heard some kind of a story that this is tangentially related to the topic that we're discussing. Then NVIDIA is going to relaunch 3050 with the GDDR6, not GDDR6X.
Yes.
Which is something like, 10% slower memory, which is quite a bit cheaper. And of course, they are not going to sticker stamp that on the boxes in the packaging. There are so many of these weird things that are happening, which are really alienating the customers. And to further this point, people who are buying lower end products, we are not now talking about you and me. We prefer to buy products that are a little bit closer to the higher end or the highest end. People who buy lower end products rely heavily on the advice that they get on the spot in the hardware store.
Yes.
And the hardware store people, if they don't know what I just used as an example, there's a difference between those two cards, they're going to offer the customer a 3050 with the GDDR6. It's going to produce slower performance, and then of course maybe the customer won't, but some of them will complain, and rightfully so, because it should be noted as a different product. I mean, NVIDIA has been doing these relabeling of and sticker stamping of the old products as new for decades now. This is not a new thing.
It's not that Intel hasn't done that.
Yeah, I know, but NVIDIA in my book has been the primary, let's say, the primary corporate entity in this world that's doing that, and they don't need to do that. That's my point.
Okay, let's now move to my second best when it comes to failed launches, Google.
Oh Lord.
If you are unfamiliar with the idea of the Google graveyard, there exists a site that lists all the hundreds of different products that Google has launched and then discontinued. I just wanted to mention a couple of them. I wanted to mention...
Killed by Google.com.
Yes, Google Graveyard. Yes. So there is hundreds of them. But the thing is that I want to mention too. I want to mention the Google Glass
Okay.
because Google Glass was an idea that was pushed way, way, way before anybody else was pushing for artificial augmented reality or virtual reality headsets. It was supposed to be augmented reality headset, but it was wrong in so many ways.
Okay.
The thing is that people actually are using it today in industries because people like overlays. The same reason is that Microsoft has a product that behaves the same, and it is being used.
It's a normal technology. Loads of cards have augmented reality
Yes.
on the, on their what's
On dashboards.
dashboards. Yeah.
Yes, but the thing was that this was one of those things that actually didn't make too much sense. The other thing was Google Wave.
Okay.
Because Google Wave was the one that everybody was talking about. The idea was that you had one notebook where you could talk and create documents together, and you would just continue working on this. This was a single thing that where everybody could just join in on the same piece of paper, virtual paper, and then they could create different kinds of contents on it. So paste images, write texts, paste videos, paste audio, and so on. So imagine it like being a OneNote as a one shared canvas. And the idea was
But it
good.
was a web application.
Yes.
Web application. Okay. Okay.
Yes, but the thing is that nobody knew what was it supposed to do, because it wasn't a communication, text communication. So text message based. You could jump to whatever part of the document you were working on.
Okay.
As soon as you started working on something, the document immediately became huge, because when you started copy pasting
Microsoft
random.
Word?
Yes, but it was different because you could quickly create something that made no sense, that would look like a high school memory book. So it was just full of different images, emojis, and so on. So nobody understood what the idea behind it was. Google Wave still exists. It is the sharing in Google Docs. You can share the document with different people, so you can see how the people are communicating.
Okay.
And it works much better than what Office 365 does.
Okay.
But this was one thing that they were trying to push.
Okay.
Let me just, before I give you an opportunity to push your next one, let me just remind you of a thing that was probably extremely local here to Croatia.
Okay.
It was possible in the other markets, but I think it was available in Germany, in Croatia, and in some other markets in Europe. Nobody in the States knows what I'm talking about. Do you remember when they were pushing for fixed phone SMS?
Yes. And it's a topic that I shouldn't discuss, but yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, I shouldn't be discussing it either, because I was at the launch and I knew what the numbers were. So basically they paid something like 500 euros per subscriber just to market the thing. And then after 1,000 people signed in, they decided they're not going to use it. Mm-hmm. And it died a slow death into oblivion.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say about that is that I did not think that is going to be anything that people want. That was my stance from the beginning.
I didn't understand from the beginning, because the
time frame of that is important.
No. The marketing campaign was insanely high visible, and it was marketing a completely niche product that wouldn't work on most phones.
Okay.
And
correct.
this was the main
you
reason.
needed to buy a new phone or an additional device.
Yes, and this was
Fixed phone.
Yes, and this was completely since the phones that were working on VoIP were coming to the market. This didn't make any sense.
Yeah, that was one of my concerns as well.
Okay, now you go.
Can I talk about something that you are not going to like?
Yes.
Google Stadia.
Why would I don't like that?
I not well. You had somebody working there, and he's your friend. But it's one of those, again, Google. products, which I'm not going to say that it didn't make sense. It did, because cloud gaming is nowadays quite popular, and there are more than a few platforms available. But it had quite a few issues with latency and technology that was related to it, as whatever. And Google eventually shut it down, like 2-3 years ago, something like that.
I think it was on market less than 6 months. But the thing was that since I know a lot about how it was developed, I'm not going to talk about it too much.
Mm-hmm.
I think I still have some NDAs. But then the thing is that Stadia had a problem.
Okay.
And the problem wasn't the technology.
Okay.
The problem was the games.
Oh, really?
Yes, because suddenly people realized that, especially the people behind the gaming studios, they realized that they are not going to get that much money that they were hoping for.
Okay.
And because you could buy a Stadia subscription.
Okay.
And this meant that you weren't buying actually a game. You were buying a subscription, then you could play hundreds of games that the Stadia was offering. So it became a problem for the gaming studios.
Okay.
So I don't think the problem with Stadia was the execution when it came to the technical side.
Okay.
The problem with the Stadia was that just the market didn't exist and still does not exist.
Okay.
Because you need the content, and nobody's going to create the content for you. And it was almost the same thing as with, no, it wasn't the same as with Windows Phone, because Windows Phone lacked the content, but the content was theoretically could be developed.
Okay.
But nobody is going to create an exclusive game for Windows Stadia, or not a lot of people are going to create new games for the Stadia because they wanted to create for this platform.
Okay.
So exclusivity didn't exist, and having your game on Stadia meant you're going to lower your sales.
Okay. I'd like to add something to that story, which is more hardware-based, which was quite worrying. I think it was 2 years ago, if I remember correctly, right around the time frame when I bought my 13-gen based PC. For context, I bought it in December of 2022, I think, and you bought it like 6 months later. I went with 3900K, he went with 13400, something like that.
13700.
Whatever.
As I said, I usually buy the second one by price.
Yeah, and we consulted heavily on that decision because he had a Ryzen system at home, still has, that was working perfectly. He wanted to have an Intel one as well. For reasons, if you ask me, passing understanding, but okay, that's completely up to you. Around that time frame, there was that insanely dangerous situation with the Asus Z790 motherboards, with the reversed capacitor or whatever it was, which resulted in more than a few fires being put out by firemen and or various types of damages being done and whatnot. And Asus's communication after that was really weird. And on top of it, with the Z790 related to 13 and 14900K situation, not the Intel side of things, but the chipset side of things, which was a story, 6 months ago or so, they had such incredibly flawed communication to their customers. They actually had a version of the BIOS that was supposed to fix the problem with the performance profile, and which they put on their website. And then in the comment of the version, it was stated that you are upgrading to this version basically on your own responsibility. I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yes, this is one of those things. And I must say that when it comes to things catching fire and things not working, I also want to mention two things. I want to mention the batteries. In different ways, sizes, and problems. Probably the biggest scandal that was one of the most expensive ones for the manufacturer, but still one that people right now don't even remember, was the Samsung Note.
Okay.
Do you remember the Samsung Note 7 that was catching fire and that was completely recalled?
Vaguely.
Yes, because it is completely recalled. So the entirety of the Samsung Note was recalled. The thing was not only that it was recalled, they discontinued the device.
Okay.
They discontinued they recalled all the units. And this is the reason why the phones are banned on flights.
That's understandable.
And the only problem that they had, or the biggest problem that they had, was the way that the battery was fixed inside the case. Because they were pushing for the case to be as thick as possible. So
As thin as possible.
As thin as possible, sorry. And they decided that they're going to do... basically what they created was the battery was too close to the edge of the case. So anything that would rub on the case or do anything to the case was actually rubbing against the battery. And so this is one of the things. But to be also completely fair, iPhone had its share of problems with batteries, not blowing up, but puffing up and ballooning and pushing the...
I had that problem across multiple devices.
Yes,
not necessarily
the laptops had the problem.
I had that problem on one of the older MacBook Pros twice.
Yes.
I had it with my Blackberries.
Do you remember when some of the Apple devices changed color because due to the temperature?
Yeah.
Yes, so this was also a problem. But somehow, by a sleight of hand and the iPhone cloud or the Apple cloud, they managed to say, okay, this is completely normal. We can wait 1 year, you're going to buy the next device, this is not going to change the color.
If we're talking about Apple, my absolute favorite of the past 10 years is the butterfly keyboard.
Yes. Yes.
It's just like... again, a lartism in Apple's way, which is let's make things thinner because they need to be thinner for no reason whatsoever.
And this is one of those things that continues to happen.
Yes, but at least they don't have the butterfly keyboard anymore.
Because this particular MacBook Air has a protective plastic around it. Mm-hmm. I don't mind this. It's probably... 2 millimeters, 2.5 millimeters. It makes it more thicker by 2 millimeters. I don't mind.
Of course you don't.
If the laptop itself were 2 millimeters thicker, but it had even better battery, I would buy that laptop.
Yeah, you still wouldn't mind because it would be worth it.
So the thickness doesn't matter.
But it's just like the latest generation of iPad Pros.
Yes.
They made them thinner for no apparent reason whatsoever. And if they made it the same size because they shrunk the, let's say, motherboard portion, whatever, that means that because of the smaller case, they shrunk the battery life, basically, as a result, or it ended up being almost the same or whatever, because the new chips are a little bit more efficient. But who asked for that? People are constantly nagging about, we want more battery life, and they make a device that's thinner and doesn't offer better battery life. And while at the same time offering a product that has a new chip, which is more efficient. That combination of variables doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But enough has been said about that on the internet in the past 6+ months since it was launched, whenever it was.
Okay, now you.
No, you.
You wasted all your...
I'm done.
Okay, now let's go back to, because this one goes on ChatGPT because it reminded me, but I remember this. Do you remember when HP was trying to create touchscreen devices? First, they tried to create touchscreen device that would be a tablet based on Windows.
Okay.
Do you remember that way back then? It was in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And then somehow they decided they're going to push for their own operating system. Basically, what they saw was that Google was pushing their own operating system. Samsung was doing it also. Apple was doing it also. So HP decided that if it's good for those three guys, they can do it. So they created WebOS, and then pushed for the HP touchpad, which was supposed to be the iPad, but by HP, which was slow. Battery life was abysmal, price was too high, and it didn't have any apps. So what they decided, and I checked it, that they're going to pull it 49 days after launching it.
Well done.
Which meant that some of the stores didn't even receive the first shipment when it was time to to create a fire sale, just to dump the devices.
Fire sale.
Yes, because it was an actual fire sale. It was inventory dump. They wanted to get rid of the devices, and then when they did that, they actually decided that they're going to be completely out of the market for the tablets.
Excellent.
Because they had HP branded tablets, they had HP touchpad, and then decided that this is going to be it. They're not going to do it. They also had a line of mobile phones, if you remember that.
I do. I never used them, but I remember reading about those.
They weren't that bad, but the problem was the WebOS.
Weirdly enough.
Yes, because they didn't have the apps.
Weirdly enough.
Yes. Also, HP also had the entire lineup of cameras.
You seem to know a lot about HP.
Yes, because I was actually closely following them and different bigger brands in the 2000s, early 2000s. So I was invited to a lot of conferences where HP was introducing different stuff. And it's amazing when you see what they are offering now and how wide the portfolio was 20 years ago.
Okay.
Because right now they have what? The servers, desktops, laptops,
Storage.
and printers.
Plenty enough, if you ask me.
And way back then, they were trying to do everything.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why I'm always amused when you mention HP, I absolutely respect and most often use their servers, and I've stated it multiple times already in the episodes. I absolutely will not, for the life of me, use their laptops. And there are price and keyboard and some other reasons for that. None of them are subjective. When I was getting myself this Snapdragon laptop, I checked the HP's version. Okay, they weren't all that available, but they were a couple of €100 more expensive for a model that was not as powerful as this one, which is usual thing that HP does oftentimes when these sorts of new products are what we're talking about.
But on the other hand, I'm going to show in the next episode, I got an HP laptop because for the reasons that you stated, there is a lot of laptops on the secondary market that are actually right now selling both as new models as refurbished models for a third or a fourth of the price. So I got an EliteBook for the price that is a fourth of the price on the official price right now on Amazon.
That's cool. Okay.
So
no problem.
I'm going to say that I would agree with you, but it's not such a problem when you can get for the price that they're asking for it. It doesn't make any sense. But for the price that you can actually get it for, it makes so much sense.
Like a lot of other devices that we could discuss.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to talk some more, or are we done for the time being?
Let me just finish with one that I remember vividly when I saw it, the Apple Maps. I wanted to mention the Apple Maps because
Newton.
No. But the thing was that all of the things that I'm mentioning here, almost all of them, came from the fact that a company created something, then another company said, okay, I like this, I need to copy this. So the Apple Maps came as the idea of Apple not liking the idea of Google having basically the complete monopoly when it comes to maps.
Okay.
So what they did, they decided they're going to create their own version of Google Maps.
Okay.
Because this was not the only thing. The other thing was that they realized that you have to have geographical information capability, because you need to have the ability of not only creating maps, but also creating GIS data. You need to be able to store the data in such a format that people can actually search to it based on location.
Okay.
So the retail prices, the retail places, parking spaces, and so on and so on and so on. So they created Google Maps, Apple Maps, sorry.
Okay.
But the first version was insane.
Okay.
It was inaccurate. It had problems. It was showing things like major bridges as being tunnels. It was doing. There are amazing images of completely insane things in first generation Apple Maps.
Okay.
So much so that people decided that this is too much, and the Apple CEO had to issue a public apology. There was a public apology about the maps, and then they actually did it right in the second generation.
I remember using the old Garmin XT
Yes.
on Symbian phone on my Nokia, which was working pretty well. This was 22 years ago or something like that in 2003-4, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it can be done. It's just that sometimes it just doesn't get done properly. It is what it is.
Yes, but the problem is that once you start looking at the implementation, you realize that some things look simple, but the execution is complicated.
Yep.
The Google Maps is by far one of the best products that Google did.
Okay.
It goes up there with the Google Mail. And
Okay.
the reason is because it was executed correctly. It was done correctly and it was executed correctly. The thing with Apple Maps was that they were trying to copy. And when you are copying a thing, when we are not trying to create a new thing, or you don't have the opportunity to create new things, then suddenly you come with this was the problem. Or let me show you. We are going to show this on the screen, or this,
Super.
or there is. The problem was that when they were trying to interpolate the height maps with the textures of the land. They mislabeled things. So Opera House was Sydney Opera House was in the middle of the ocean. So
It's a little bit more to like close to the ocean, but not necessarily in the ocean.
No, but the problem was that I wouldn't call this a problem of the technology. It was the problem of just not giving people enough time to sort out the different things that needed to be sorted out for the product to be launched. So the technology itself was more or less sane. But once you create a technology, once you create a prototype of the technology, it takes some time to polish it out.
Of course.
In order to be able to push it into production.
And by extension, this is in large what we are talking about in this episode.
Yes.
It's exactly that I'm kind of like hoping that is the message of the episode. Slow the hell down. I mean, to hell with the launch schedules and everything else, relax them a little bit. It's not like every person on the planet needs a new CPU every year. That's stupid. We just don't.
But I think that one of the biggest problems that I mentioned was that I don't think if it was before we were trying to talk about, but the thing is that they are trying to push for a yearly update of everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just don't have anything to show for the last year.
Yeah.
For example, what I actually hate is the idea of a word processor, being it Word or Write or whatever processor you're using, having yearly versions.
Yes.
Why? If I want to write something, I think that probably 110% of things that I need is already there. I don't want to have additional things like, I don't know, image editing inside the word processor. Why? There is an image editing application. So this is the feature creep that says, okay, I need to release a new version every year, so we need to think of something that is going to be in the next version, and then say, okay, what is going to be? Let's make it fix cars. So then suddenly we have a word processor that's trying to fix cars.
Hell no.
Give it time.
Yeah, I know.
Give it time.
It's going to be AI prompts and then fix cars.
I must say that I'm a little bit concerned what is Microsoft going to do, because we were talking about, before the filming, we were talking about the Microsoft Copilot, and I said that the way Copilot was working when I tried it, when it was launched, Copilot Pro, by Copilot Pro, I mean that by the time this is released, probably the name is probably Copilot Office Office 365 Copilot for Microsoft Word or something like this. It's going to get rebranded. Yes. So Copilot Pro was supposed to be the paid version of the Copilot in the Windows 11. And the idea was that the Copilot should be something that would help you work in Office 365. My biggest gripe that I had with it is that I wanted to do a simple task. I had a Word document and said, okay, I need a PowerPoint presentation that's going to be created from this Word document. I would expect from something that is incorporated into Office 365 to be able to say, okay, I need to summarize this, create slides, save, I have a PowerPoint. No, it replied the same thing that ChatGPT would reply. I cannot create a PowerPoint presentation on my own, but I can give you the slides and the content of the slides.
Basically like page breaks, stuff
yes,
like that.
but the thing is that once you use ChatGPT, you can actually ask it to create a VBA script that you can run and create the slides. In Copilot Pro, it doesn't work. So
at least now.
So this was the problem. The problem was that the functionality that I know exists in the third-party application does not exist in the Microsoft's own application, and I'm supposed to be paying for it the same amount of money as for the third-party application. It has enormous amount of different things that Microsoft cannot do.
Okay. No,
okay, let's finish.
Reasonable.
Let's finish this thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I want to just say one more thing. You were you looked so. I wouldn't say angry, but you looked so official when you started this episode, and you are much more smiling much more now. And I think that the thing is that you just need to remember how insanely broken the tech industry is.
The ecosystem altogether is. No, actually, it's something else. Over the years, one of the things that I learned is that you can say loads of crap, completely valid crap about a crappy product in 20 different ways. But you can also do that so that you get your point across without necessarily wanting to offend somebody. That's my way, at least. And it's not because I'm afraid to offend somebody. I just don't communicate that way, unless you're on the other end of that conversation, and then we insult each other on a daily basis because it's fun. But generally speaking, going back to the topic, these things piss me off, definitely. Because they are rushed versions of decisions that should have not been made ever. All of the mentioned examples that we talked about today, they are still going to get done that way. The world is going to keep on spinning after our episode. The capitalism is going to do its own thing. I'm very aware of that. But it would be good if all of us just stopped a little bit at times, handbrake, and think about it, especially what you just said, the product design stage versus the actual product stage, the testing, to put all of the bits and pieces in the correct place. That requires time, and that time I understand why, but it shouldn't necessarily be tied to the expectation of the stock price rising, which is basically what's happening nowadays.
The stock prices and the way they influence different things that we do are something that I think warrants a completely separate episode.
I agree.
I'm just going to say the gist of what I think about this. The idea that your company is not good enough as soon as it stops having two-digit rise in sales or in units and whatever is completely wrong.
Yeah, it's stupid.
You can have a company that creates something that is completely viable, that works, and that doesn't need to be upgraded, changed, and so on. I'm going to give you one example because I was looking for on a short documentary about it. The big pen.
Okay.
BIC.
No. Okay.
The blue pen. Do you know how many units did they sold?
No.
300 billion units. The pen has not been changed in the last 60 years. 60.
Okay, law of diminishing returns would have something to say about it, but yeah, I get.
Yes, but what they actually do is they are a company from Europe, and they are so huge that nobody can get even close to their product. So they are not into creating additional things. They're just selling the pens. The pen works. They're creating the pens. They're selling the pens. Why is a company, whatever, technical company, unable to do this? Usually because they are on the market. And once you're in the stock market, you have to create new products, you have to create something, and then it comes to...
it's about the legal framework, fiduciary duties of the people running the company. It's what it is, which I think in the future should be changed before we self-destruct.
Yes, or before we, for example, strand two people in space because we are unable to create a spaceship. But
4 months, yeah.
Yes, this
topic
is
for another day.
This is going to be another topic. Yes.
Okay. Well, this was another episode of That IT Show podcast. We talked about a lot of stuff related to failed product, either launches or life cycles or whatnot. And we'll see each other in the next episode.
Yes, thank you and bye.
Bye.